It has to be one of the most frustrating things ever. You've been diagnosed with depression, you're doing the treatments, but nothing seems to be working. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, then this explainer is definitely for you, because the reason might be something you haven't even considered.
And that really is the question, isn't it? You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, but that relief you were hoping for, it just isn't showing up. It can feel incredibly isolating, but trust me, you are not the only one asking this. Not by a long shot.
And look, this isn't just something you're imagining. It's a known pattern. Sometimes the standard treatments for depression don't just fall flat, they can actually make things worse. This isn't some kind of personal failure. It's a huge diagnostic clue.
So here's the big idea, the real takeaway. What if the problem isn't the medication you're on or the therapy you're trying? What if the original diagnosis of depression just doesn't tell the whole story of what's going on? And that brings us to something called bipolar II disorder. Now, I know when people hear bipolar, their minds often jump to these really extreme, dramatic highs. But with bipolar II, those up periods are way more subtle. They're called hypomania, and they can just feel like you've suddenly got a ton of energy, or you're super creative and productive. And because they don't necessarily feel bad, they are so easy to miss.
So just how often does this get missed? Well, the answer might actually shock you.
Get this. Studies show that anywhere from a quarter to a full half of all people who are told they have treatment-resistant depression might actually have an undiagnosed bipolar condition. That is a massive number of people who could be on the completely wrong path to feeling better.
All right, so let's dig into those clues, right? The things that often get overlooked. It's all about learning what to look for.
Okay, so this slide really breaks it down. Over on the left, you've got the stuff we all associate with depression. But take a look at the right. Do any of these sound familiar? These are the signs of hypomania. Ever had a few days where you just didn't need much sleep but felt totally wired? Or you suddenly launched into some huge, ambitious project out of nowhere? Maybe you had a period of spending money a little too impulsively. See, those aren't signs of depression. They're clues that something else might be going on.
So really think about it. Does your life feel like it has both sides of this coin? Do you find yourself cycling between those deep, dark lows and these periods of really high, maybe even kind of chaotic energy?
Okay, so if any of this is starting to ring a bell, you're probably asking, so what now? What do I do? And the good news is, there's a really clear path you can take to go from just having clues to getting some real clarity.
The path forward really just boils down to a simple two-step process. First, you start with an online screener to see if this is a path worth exploring, and then you move toward getting a full professional evaluation.
And that first step, it's super accessible. We're not talking about some random internet quiz here. This is based on the Mood Disorder Questionnaire, which is a standard tool that clinicians actually use. It literally takes 2 minutes, it's free, it's totally confidential, and it's built to help you see if there's a history of those up periods we've been talking about. So you can find that screener right at the address you see on your screen. It's a fantastic, no-pressure first step just to see if a deeper look makes sense for you.
But, and this is super important to remember, a screener is just a starting point. It is not a diagnosis. Think of it more like a signpost. The absolutely essential next step to get a real answer is to have a complete evaluation with a qualified professional.
So you'll want to look for a provider who can give you that full evaluation. For instance, the service our source material mentions, CHC in Georgia, offers these completely through telehealth. A couple key things you should always look for are things like integrated medication management and a team that is diverse and culturally competent. Of course, one of the first questions is always going to be, what's this going to cost? So it's really important to check what your insurance covers. As you can see from this example, a lot of plans, including Medicaid, can make getting professional help surprisingly accessible, with copays often in that $25 to $40 range. So when you feel ready to take that next step, it's really as simple as making a phone call to a qualified provider to finally start getting some definitive answers.
All right, let's wrap this up by talking about why this is all so important. I mean, why does getting a new, more accurate diagnosis actually matter? It's not just about changing a label. It's about unlocking the door to the right treatment.
And this, right here, is probably the most important message of all. This is not a life sentence. Bipolar II is highly treatable. The whole key is getting it correctly identified. The hope for feeling better is absolutely 100% there.
And this is really the bottom line.
The whole reason your depression treatment might not be working is because the medications and therapies for bipolar 2 are fundamentally different. It's often about mood stabilizers, not just antidepressants. Getting the right diagnosis isn't just a small detail, it's everything. It is the single most important step you can take towards finally feeling better.
So, we'll leave you with this thought. Instead of asking, why isn't my depression treatment working, maybe the more powerful, more useful question to start asking is, could it be something else? It might just be the question that changes everything for you.